It got into a heated exchange with Democratic senators on Wednesday. This as U.S. President Donald Trump weighed joining Israel in strikes on Iran. While testifying on Capitol Hill, Hegseth declined to comment on whether the Pentagon had prepared strike options against Iran. He said, the U.S. military is ready to carry out any decision that U.S. President Donald Trump might make on Iran. However, this did not go down well with the lawmakers who were there, who then countered Hegseth aggressively over several issues. Take a look.
Secretary, but my question for you is whether you have been asked actively to provide options for the president regarding a strike in the Middle East.
If I had or I had not, I wouldn't disclose that in this forum, Senator. My job, our job, Chairman and I, at all times, is to make sure the president has options and is informed of what those options might be and what the ramifications of those options might be.
I appreciate that.
You mentioned
Thank
the troops in the region with
I
maximum force protection at all times is being maintained. We know right now that Tehran understands exactly what the president is saying. He said 60 days. The world can believe it, and the world cannot believe it. He set 60 days. They had an opportunity to make a deal. They should have made a deal. President Trump's word means something. The world understands that. And at the Defense Department, our job is to stand ready and prepared with options, and that's precisely what we're doing.
So is this an opportunity now to reestablish deterrence the way it was done in the first administration?
Senator, I think we already have, in many ways, in this environment, reestablished deterrence. The question is, in the coming days, where exactly what direction that goes. Evidence would you have that an order like that has ever been given?
Giving that order to your predecessor, to a Republican Secretary of Defense, who I give a lot of credit to because he didn't accept the order. He had more guts and balls than you because he said, I'm not going to send in the uniformed military to do something that I know in my gut isn't right. He was asked to shoot at their legs. He wrote that in his book. That's not hearsay. So your poo-pooing of this, it just shows you don't understand who we are as a country. Who we are. And all of my colleagues across the aisle, especially the ones that served, should want an apolitical military and not want citizens to be scared of their own military. I love the military. I served alongside my whole life, so I'm worried about you tainting it. Have you given the order? Have you given the order that they can use lethal force against honor? I want the answer to be no. Please tell me it's no. Have you given the order?
Senator, I'd be careful what you read in books and believing it, except for the Bible.
Oh, my God.
And I'm going to ask you once again, to shoot peaceful protesters in the legs, would you carry out such an order from the president?
Senator, as I've said before, of course, I reject the premise of your question and the characterization that I would be given or are given unlawful orders. It's all meant to attempt to smear the commander-in-chief, and I won't fall for it.
U.S. President Donald Trump hosted Pakistan's Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir at the White House. The lunch meeting was the first time an American president hosted the head of Pakistan's army. Trump said he discussed the Iran-Israel conflict with Munir, as Pakistan knows about Tehran better than most. Islamabad has condemned Israel's airstrikes against Iran, saying that they violate international law and threaten regional stability.
Is there anything you can share from that meeting? Yeah, well, they know Iran very well, better than most. And they're not happy about anything. It's not that they're bad with Israel. They know them both, actually, but they probably, maybe they know Iran better. But they see what's going on.
But is it all that was discussed? Could there possibly be more on the agenda during Trump and Munir's meeting? Perhaps Pakistan's position at the moment, how it is potentially trapped at the sidelines of the Iran-Israel war. We say that because Pakistan shares a long border with Iran, which runs up to over 900 kilometers. The two countries also have 4 border crossings. Granted, the crossings have now been shut under the prevailing situation. But there's a fear in Pakistan about Israel possibly toppling the current regime in Iran and what the ramifications of that scenario will mean for Islamabad. Reports say that Pakistan's army chief raised these fears during the meeting with Trump, including the very real possibility of cross-border unrest pressed on by militant outfits and Pakistan likely suffering a spillover of this war fought very close to its western borders. And now coming to US side of the story. Did the American president, Donald Trump, seek something from Pakistan? That's the question we are asking on Gravitas tonight. There are two possible areas of interest which Trump may have touched upon. Scenario number one, Trump could have potentially asked for the US to once again use Pakistan air bases. Granted that America has done this in the past during its long-drawn conflict with Afghanistan that lasted over 20 years. It's a base which is tried and tested by American forces. That was scenario number one. Now scenario number two. A mineral deal. The US is eyeing a deal several countries, including Ukraine, for rare earth minerals. It is possible that Trump may have pushed Munir to get Pakistan to sign a similar rare earth minerals deal with the United States of America. Pakistan has a significant mineral reserve buried deep under its mountains in the form of lithium, copper, and rare earth elements, which Washington could potentially be interested in tapping. But if this really is the case, what will be China's reaction to a potential US-Pakistan mineral deal? Granted that both US and China have been involved in a tango of sorts on, rather, who exerts how much influence over Pakistan. China already has in play the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC, which is a part of its larger Belt and Road Initiative. The bottom line is this. Pakistan Army Chief's lunch with Donald Trump may be postured as a simple diplomatic sit-down, but behind closed doors, there's the very real possibility that Pakistan is scrambling to strike a balance between two of the biggest countries that it relies very heavily on. One wrong move, and Islamabad might find itself in a deeper mess. In the aftermath of the tragic crash of Air India flight AI-171 on June 12th, which claimed the lives of 241 people, Air India has said it is now making major operational shifts. The airline is cutting 15% of its services on all wide-body aircraft that have global operations. The latest move will be effective till mid-July, and it reflects its response to broader operational challenges that Air India faces. The airline confirmed that it is cooperating fully with the official investigation into the crash and outlined known facts about the flight that crashed earlier this month. The airline said that the aircraft was a Boeing 787 with the last major inspection in June 2023, and the next one was due in December this year. Further outlining that the aircraft engines had also undergone recent checks in March and April this year. Since the crash of the 787 Dreamliner in Ahmedabad, the airline has initiated an enhanced safety inspection protocol that includes safety audits that extend beyond the Dreamliners. The company has said that it will extend these inspections to Boeing 77s as a precaution. Experts say that the safety checks are only part of the equation now. External pressures, economic challenges, and trust building remain central to the company's interests now. While Air India had set an ambitious and aggressive expansion plan that included adding 470 new aircraft to its existing fleet, its immediate concerns could force it to look at existing policies. Reputation risks are also high, as safety perception is key to consumer confidence in the global market. The Asian market remains extremely competitive, with Gulf carriers aggressively pushing for premiumization and quality of services that, according to experts, is key to cracking corporate deals that are a major source of revenue. Geopolitical tensions in West Asia have further complicated operations, and the bottom line for Air India, as air travel corridors face disruption, flying routes have become longer, logistics have become complicated, and demand for business travel also is low. Overall, the weeks ahead are crucial for Air India on multiple fronts. To name some, balancing passenger confidence regulatory demands and minimizing service disruptions are more crucial than protecting revenue as of now. As Air India navigates this critical stretch in its transformation journey, it's not just about managing the crisis, but about proving its vision of becoming a world-class airline. All right, first it was burgers and now pizzas. US President Donald Trump's connection with fast foods is only growing stronger. Save this time. A serious link is being predicted between the two that might even go to the extent of predicting global crisis. Well, as the Israel-Iran war rages on, a group of netizens claim that they saw it coming. They claim that the clues were hidden in the business of pizzerias near the Pentagon. I know what you're wondering. You may be wondering, what's the connection after all? A theory is now doing the rounds on pizza sales from restaurants and joints near the Pentagon reaching its peak on the night Israel launched preemptive strikes on Iran last week. However, this theory is not new. In fact, it's a decade old, dating back to at least 1991. With people reporting a buzz in pizza selling activities every time a geopolitical conflict broke out. But this time around, it has set social media on fire quite literally. A popular account on X called Pentagon Pizza Report says it provides, and I quote here, open source tracking of pizza spot activity around the Pentagon and other places, unquote. So much so that an online surge in orders was noted at District Pizza Palace, a takeaway just 2 miles away from the Pentagon. And according to the theory, these pizzas are delivered to Pentagon employees clocking late hours. Now, understand this. An online group claiming to get any kind of insight on a classified piece of information exclusive to the White House, and that's huge. However, the Department of Defense has reportedly said that the claim does not quite add up, given that Pentagon arranges its own snack facilities to meet late-night hunger pangs. Theorists also claim a pizza delivery person out on the streets night and day picks up more information faster than any news media does, where people work in time-bound shifts. But like any other theories, it's only too good to be true. All right. In other news, as conflicts escalate in different parts of the world, there's an increasingly alarming trend of countries turning to domestic defense manufacturing. This shift is driven by a desire for self-reliance and strategic autonomy in defense. But it also carries the risks of a potential arms race. The global arms manufacturer list was an exclusive club, but it's quickly expanding now. Japan, one of the largest exporters of automobiles and cutting-edge tech, is now aggressively pivoting towards military exports. Japan's Defense Minister General Nakatani recently announced an intent to lead global defense manufacturing. Prime Minister of Japan Shigeru Ishiba also joined the push as he became the first leader in the country to attend Japan's largest defense expo. Recent escalations between Israel and Iran is not just a regional conflict. It is perhaps a reminder of how wars can impact countries, continents. Countries like India, Australia and South Korea are among the others that are investing heavily in homegrown military. Experts say that Japan's military exports may not be aimed at national security, but the government is increasingly looking at military exports to drive economic expansion. Japan's policy shift is concerning as it signals a pivot from the self-imposed restriction of arms exports. While the industrial logic is clear, it does raise a security concern and gets more complex when moral implications are considered. As countries increasingly pledge a higher percentage of the GDP for defense manufacturing, the business of wars is becoming an attractive one today. As countries increasingly expand their defense footprint, the cost of conflict is no longer measured in lives lost, but oil barrels disrupted, revenue through military exports, and national defense budgets. An historic first in the fight against HIV, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has approved a twice-yearly injection as for preventing HIV infection in adults and adolescents. It's the first and only shot of its kind. Experts are calling this a long-acting shot, a potential game changer, a once unthinkable milestone in the decades-long battle against a global epidemic. The drug, named by Gilead Sciences, is called lenacapavir and will be marketed under the brand name Yeztugo. The drug has shown to reduce the risk of HIV transmission by more than 99.9%. Two major clinical trials back that claim as well. The first involved over 2,000 women in sub-Saharan Africa. It resulted in a 100% prevention rate, outperforming the daily pill Truvada. And well, the second trial included over 2,000 men and gender-diverse participants. Only 2 infections were recorded, again, a 99.9% success rate. Reported side effects were mostly mild, to name some: injection site reactions, headache and nausea. The findings were published in the New England Journal of Medicine. The journal Science also named lenacapavir its 2024 breakthrough of the year. However, Gilead has set the U.S. list price at $28,218 for the 2 doses used in a year, further sparking concerns about affordability and access. This approval comes as HIV-related funding has been sharply cut under the Trump administration, affecting research, prevention, and global programs. Well, India, on its part, has reaffirmed its commitment to end HIV as a public threat by 2030. The country has reduced new HIV infections by 44% since 2010, outperforming the global average. Well, over 30 million free HIV tests are conducted annually, and India supplies more than 70% of the world's antiretroviral medicines, ensuring access for countries who are in need. According to India's HIV Estimations 2023 report, about 2.5 million people are living with HIV, but adult prevalence remains low at just 0.2%. Typing on laptops or scribbling important information on paper, what would you prefer? While you hold that thought, the French have gone back to the good old way of taking notes. In a bold move towards curbing screen addiction, several French universities have banned the use of computers during lectures, thus pushing students to take handwritten notes instead. The move is in a bid to minimize distractions and also boost focus among the young, who are often found to be engaged in online activities even during their classes, thus impacting their offline engagement. Several top colleges in France across streams such as Sciences Po and others have resorted to this rule to bring the art of note-taking back in vogue. This is also being done to better facilitate teacher-student communication in the classrooms, especially during undergraduate lectures. And guess what? Even psychologists are backing the move, saying that handwriting notes forces students to think, prioritize, and retain more. Even Harvard agrees, advising students for better learning with handwritten notes. This only suggests the relentless commitment of French officials towards offering quality education, and the results are evident. Earlier this year, France's Sciences Po ranked 4th worldwide in the politics category out of over 1,700 global colleges who applied for the spot. And not just France, Indian Institute of Technology, IIT Delhi, has emerged as the highest ranked Indian institution in the QS World University Rankings 2026. For the first time in 8 years, a major feat, thanks to its sustainability practices, evolving as a newest metric of judgment. And coming back to France, however, such a move of institutionally imposed digital detox is not limited to colleges only, for the country is also taking a harder line, pushing to ban screens for children under 3 and social media for those under 15. Well, that's all that we could pack for today's edition of Gravitas. Thanks very much for staying with us. You are watching WION The World is One. Stay tuned.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
We're giving an AI-generated video where we can analyze your credit history, your credit score.
It's all about now content. A lot of it is now digital. A lot of TV content is still being watched.
I think it's been a fantastic journey. We have succeeded in some of our original goals, which was to bring credit accessibility to both companies and individuals.
Key milestones of traction under your leadership.
Getting actually a personal check from Mr. Ratan Tata. We got an opportunity to get listed.
One of the biggest things that has changed in Razorpay over last 5-6 years, Jaibi, is to be a single product, single business company to a multi-product, multi-business company.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Hello and welcome. You're watching WION World is One. My name is Mohammed Saleh, and let's start this broadcast by taking a quick look as to what is making headlines at this hour. The Israeli army says that sirens have been sounded in the north after an Iranian ballistic missile launch. Sirens and interceptions have taken part in the country's north, where it needs to be seen as to how many of the Iranian ballistic missiles have managed to squeeze through and have hit their targets. The Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu vows to remove the nuclear and the ballistic missile threat posed by Iran on the seventh day of the war between the two arch enemies in the Middle East. Iran says that the death toll of its citizens who have been killed in the Israeli bombings in the course of this week has now risen to 639, with more than 1,200 people having sustained some serious injuries. And Gaza's Civil Defense Agency says that the Israeli fire has killed at least about 72 more Palestinians in the last 24 hours. The Israeli army claims that the troops had fired warning shots at suspects who were approaching them and ended up killing 72 people. And 215 bodies of the victims of the ill-fated Air India flight have now been identified through DNA matching. 198 bodies have now been handed over to their families. Now, the American President Donald Trump has said that he's given the social media platform TikTok another 90 days to find a non-Chinese buyer or be banned in the United States altogether. The Trump posted on his Truth Social platform, putting off the ban for the third time. Hurricane Eric makes its landfall in western Mexico state of Oaxaca as a dangerous Category 4 storm, bringing wind speeds of up to 200 kilometers per hour amidst heavy rains. All right, so let's start this broadcast with some breaking news that has just come in, where diplomats have told Reuters that Iran has held direct talks with the United States amidst the intensifying war with Israel. The U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi have spoken over the phone several times in a bid to find some kind of a diplomatic end to this crisis. And according to the diplomats, Araghchi has said that Tehran would not return to the negotiations unless Israel stops its attacks, which began with the Israeli Operation Rising Lion on the 13th of June.
Ayatollah Khamenei tweeted almost every day, "Death to Israel."
Whom should we surrender to? Iran is not a nation to surrender.
You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do.
Now, Iran's Operation True Promise 3, launched in response to the Israeli attack that was dubbed Operation Rising Lion, is getting deadlier with every passing day. Now, Israel and Iran are launching more devastating rounds of assaults on each other. And our next story takes a look as to how, after firing hypersonic missiles, Iran is claiming to unleash the next generation missiles that it has in its arsenal. Take a look.
Day and night, Israeli skies are lit. Israel's Iron Dome is overwhelmed. Every day, Iranian missiles are breaching. The missile defense systems causing devastation. Social media is ablaze with images of Iranian missiles streaking in unpredictable patterns, evading the much vaunted Iron Dome and David's Sling systems. Explosions light up the horizon as the Sejil missile, used for the first time, slam into their targets with surgical precision. The Sejil is a two-stage solid-fuel surface-to-surface medium-range ballistic missile. Iran claims that it has a range of 2,000 kilometers. The 18-meter-long missile can deliver a payload of approximately 700 kilograms. It can achieve a maximum speed of up to Mach 4 to Mach 5. Iranian media reports direct hits on critical military and intelligence sites, including a Mossad-linked center and a fighter jet base. Such hypersonic velocity leaves minimal time for interception, unlike slower ballistic missiles which peak and descend predictably. These missiles plunge with speed and maneuver at high altitude, tricky targets for even advanced systems. Iran's arsenal is on full display. Hypersonic missiles, swarms of drones, and innovative tactics designed to overwhelm and confuse Israeli interceptors. Each barrage is more sophisticated than the last, catching Israeli commanders off guard and forcing a desperate scramble for new strategies to counter the incoming projectiles. Bureau Report, WION The World is One.
All right, now joining us in the broadcast, we've got Colonel David Desroches, who is now a professor, Near East South Asia Center for Strategic Studies. at the National Defense University and also a former Deputy Director for Peacekeeping in the Office of the Secretary of Defense. Colonel David DeRoche, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. Now, Donald Trump has to make what is arguably the biggest decision of his life, whether to join the war or not. It is day 7 of the war. Why do you think the American president is finding it hard to make a decision here?
Well, because I think he sees the war is going on a glide path to achieving his policy objective, which is the destruction of the Iranian nuclear weapons program without any involvement by the United States. And President Trump, in contrast with previous Republican presidents, explicitly ran on a platform of saying we should not get involved militarily in the Middle East. We should let other countries in the Middle East take care of these security issues. So basically, he's getting what he asked for here, and he doesn't really need to do anything. So I think that, why should you expend effort when you're getting what you want without expending effort?
That's an interesting analysis. You say that he's getting what he needs, so he doesn't need to get involved. But the Israeli Prime Minister and the top leadership in Israel, including the defense ministers, have indicated that they would be pretty happy to have the Americans get involved in the war, at least in taking out the nuclear facility in Fordo. In case the American president does indeed decide to go ahead and join this war, what do you think would be the level of American involvement?
Well, it depends. So there's a couple scenarios. So first, if Iran were to attack American forces or American interests anywhere in the world, so I think that includes a terrorist attack against, here in the United States or in Europe, then I think he'd be involved. And you see that the United States has built amassed a pretty big force in the region that I think is designed to deter Iranian action, but should Iran attack in one of these asymmetric ways, that there's that potential. I think the second potential is that if Netanyahu, who no doubt wants, as any other leader would, wants as many partners to assist him as possible, if he actually does make the argument for some limited thing like attacks on the underground nuclear weapons facilities that cannot really be effectively destroyed with certainty by any conventional weapon. The third possibility is, as the war progresses more and more in Israel's way, he may just jump on the horse before it crosses the finish line, jump on the winning horse before it crosses the finish line, so that he can claim a part in what looks to be a pretty decisive victory.
Right, there could be a victory, but the question, of course, is at what cost will it come? Now, there are reports that have appeared in places such as the Wall Street Journal, which indicate that the Israelis are running low in the reserves of their interception missiles that are used in their air defense systems. It's also being pointed out that even the United States of America will not be able to replenish these interceptor missiles at the pace at which they're being burnt out. In your assessment, it's being said that these interception missiles could last for about 10 or maybe 12 days. But what do you think happens once these interception missiles are no longer there for use for the Israelis?
Yeah, so I think that Israel, assuming that they do not destroy the ballistic missile inventory, and it's worth noting that the number of missiles fired at Israel have dropped markedly. They were hampered. I thought the initial response would be 1,500 missiles, and it was less than 100. And now we're down at the point where there's dozens of missiles, about a dozen missiles fired every day. So if Israel cannot degrade that capability to the point where you're in single digits and Iran becomes like the Houthis, then I think what Israel will do is go on the offense. They'll threaten deterrence and they'll say, look, we are going to attack sites that we haven't attacked, like national leadership sites, members of the National Assembly, members of the Council of Guardians, regime targets. Even so far, even the leadership of the Ministry of Defense Forces, the regular Iranian Army, Navy, Aerospace Corps, have not been targeted. Israel's only targeted the Revolutionary Guard Corps and the atomic weapons scientists. So there might be a threat of, look, if you're attacking our national infrastructure, we will broaden the attack targets from what Israel considers to be a focused target against the nuclear weapons program and Iran's offensive capabilities towards national infrastructure as well.
Question to you, Colonel Deroche, is this. A lot of people are saying that the entire premise of this war is that Iran is developing nuclear weapons. Now, the intelligence chief of the United States, Tulsi Gabbard, in her assessment had said that Iran is nowhere close to developing these nuclear weapons. With that being said, there also does not seem to be a lot of support amongst the Republican voter base for America to get involved in a war. With that being the case, do you think Donald Trump will be able to convince his Republican base and the American public at large that this is a war that he needs to get involved in?
Well, there are wars and there are wars. There's no appetite anywhere in the United States to have 40,000 American soldiers on the ground administering Iran. I think that a limited series of airstrikes and possibly one or two commando raids against hardened facilities is something that could be supported. But, you know, it's pretty clear what we don't want. What we don't want is a multiple-year occupation that would inevitably devolve into a guerrilla war that involves tens of thousands of American soldiers. That's the kind of conflict that Donald Trump ran against. But you know, if it's just an instance of, you know, 5 days of bomber runs hitting heavy targets, I think that that's sustainable. And I think that by the time congressional mobilization operates, Trump's calculus will be that the conflict has ended.
All right, we'll have to leave there. Thank you very much indeed, Colonel Deroche, for joining us with that perspective there.
Thank you.
Now, Israeli cities are being devastated as Iran continues to launch its wave after wave of missile strikes. This is something that has never happened in the last 7 decades that the state of Israel has been in existence. Now, Tehran is also burning under the thunder of the Israeli airstrikes. The world, of course, is holding its breath as the United States has now dispatched a third aircraft carrier to the region. The big question, of course, is this: what will make the American president enter this war, and how soon will the Americans join in on this war bandwagon? Take a look.
Israeli jets have hammered Iranian targets in Tehran, igniting panic and sending thousands fleeing the city. Iran has hit back with a relentless barrage of missiles and drones, striking deep into Israeli territory and vowing never to surrender. The US has built up military forces in the region in recent days. A third US Navy destroyer entered the eastern Mediterranean Sea, and a second US carrier strike group is heading towards the Arabian Sea. Carrier strike groups refueling aircraft and advanced air and naval assets have been deployed to prepare for any escalation. The Pentagon says these are all defensive deployments. The US already has over 40,000 troops spread across at least 19 bases in the region, from Qatar and Kuwait to Saudi Arabia and the UAE. In Washington, President Donald Trump stands at a crossroads that could redefine West Asia. He has issued a chilling demand for Iran's unconditional surrender, asked if he had decided whether to strike at Iran's nuclear facilities. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei warns that any US military intervention would bring irreparable consequences. The risks are monumental. A single miscalculation could ignite a regional conflagration, threaten global energy supplies, and draw the US into another protracted war.
So if America does commit, that the real risk here, which Iran has been threatening, is that it will potentially target American and other nations' military capability in the region, a lot of which within missile range of Iran.
As the world holds its breath, the fate of the region hangs on decisions yet to be made by Trump, by Khamenei, by Netanyahu, and by the unpredictable logic of war itself. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Now, Iran's potential closure of the Strait of Hormuz is a threat that has re-emerged amidst the rising tensions with Israel. Now, Iran's Parliamentary National Security Committee board member says that Iran has many options to respond to the aggression, including the closing of the Strait of Hormuz if it comes to that. The Iranian lawmaker says that Iran will resort to the closure of the global oil lifeline if its interests are endangered. Now, Iran has in the past threatened to close off the Strait of Hormuz to traffic in retaliation for Western pressure. Commercial ships were avoiding Iran's waters around the strait. So let's understand as to what the Strait of Hormuz is and why is it so significant for global trade. The Strait of Hormuz is very narrow, but strategically a vital waterway that connects the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman and ultimately to the Arabian Sea. It sits between Iran to the north and Oman and the United Arab Emirates to the south. The strait spans only about 21 nautical miles across, but despite its size, it plays a huge role in the global economy. Every day, a significant portion of the world's oil supplies, estimated about 20% of all seaborne crude, passes through this route. The waterway is governed by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea under the principle of transit passage, now allowing ships of all nations to pass through it. But what happens if Iran shuts it? Now, it would have an immediate impact on the global price of oil, which has the potential to cause significant worldwide economic disruptions. This would come at a time when oil prices have already increased after the ongoing tensions in West Asia. The closure of the waterway would also affect the Gulf Arab states, which have already been at odds with Iran and aligned with the United States. There would be pressure to act and support some kind of intervention because of the massive impact to their heavily oil and natural gas dependent economies. Not only other nations, but in fact the closure of the Strait of Hormuz would impact Iran's economy the most. The revenue from oil and natural gas shipments is key to the country, and the disruptions to the seaborne commerce would have other impacts on the Iranian economy as well. So as the Israel-Iran war escalates, reports from within Israel indicate a divide in the defense preparedness for Arab and Jewish Israelis. Now, Israel's Democratic Party's chairman, Yair Golan, who is in the opposition, has called the gap a significant one, with Arab Israelis not having enough access to bomb shelters and other critical war preparedness infrastructure. Now, Yair Golan, in fact, reportedly took a tour of the Arab municipalities of Shefa Amr, Nazareth and Shibli in northern Israel, following which he criticized the unequal access to the Israeli leader, and I quote, "Iranian missiles do not distinguish between Jews and Arabs. There are huge gaps in defense preparedness of the Arab society where the Israelis, the Jewish Israelis, have access to these bomb shelters while the Arab Israeli population predominantly does not." The Democrat Party head has criticized the Israeli institutions for not allocating adequate state budget towards bolstering defense preparedness in the Arab municipalities. And according to another Israeli opposition party, Hadash Tal party's chairman, Ayman Odeh, there are no public shelters that are available in Israel's northern city of Tamra, which has a sizable Arab Israeli population, including Arab Muslims and Arab Christians. Now, Odeh said that only about 40% of the area has access to private shelters. 4 Israelis were killed in Tamra on the 14th of June as a result of an Iranian missile strike. Criticism is now growing in Israel for not building as many shelters for the Arabs in the country. A 2024 report that was published by the Israel Democracy Institute has its findings revealed that the Israeli authorities have not met their responsibility to provide adequate protective structures in Arab cities. A 2018 State Comptroller report said that only about 11 out of the 71 Arab local authorities examined had public shelters. The prevailing hostilities between Israel and Iran has brought this discrepancy against Arab Israelis back into the spotlight. The Prime Minister Narendra Modi and also the Minister of External Affairs helped evacuating in the Indian students from Iran. Out of the 110 Indian students that were evacuated, 94 Kashmiri students have now returned back to India. The students moved from one city to another and then crossed over the border from Iran into Armenia, and it took them a total of 4 days to be finally airlifted by an Indian aircraft. And upon their arrival in Kashmir, the students thanked the Indian embassy for arranging their transport to airports and ensuring security amidst war. They also expressed immense gratitude towards the central government.
I am feeling very good, like very calm. It was a very, very hectic journey for us, for all students, I'll say. But I am feeling very, subtle and very calm seeing my parents right now. It feels very surreal here, being back home.
The government of India played a major role in getting you back. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, it does. 110% efforts were given by the government of India for our evacuation. It did everything, whatever it was in their control to, evacuate us from, Iran. Yeah, very thankful to them. Very, very thankful.
The many students were sent to Kashmir via buses that were arranged by Umar Abdullah-led government, while many, in fact, took flights back to their hometowns. It's been a very difficult past week, and the students who found themselves caught amidst the chaos are now saying that they are relieved to be back home in India.
I am relieved and happy, but deep down, being not in our country where we study is not that much relieving for us also.
But I'm sure you met your parents.
Yeah. Our family was in so much distress due to us, obviously. We were trying to calm them, we are safe and sound, but obviously parents have a lot of concern for their children. They are so happy to see them here.
The students who boarded the buses from Delhi to Kashmir will reach the valley on the 20th of June. While many students are back home safely, there are still many students who are stuck in Iran and are waiting to be evacuated by the ministry. And with that, a wrap on this edition of our newscast. Stay tuned to WION.
We're giving an AI-generated video where we can analyze your credit history, your credit score.
It's all about now content. A lot of it is now digital. A lot of TV content is still being watched.
I think it's been a fantastic journey. We have succeeded in some of our original goals, which was to bring credit accessibility to both companies and individuals.
Key milestones of traction under your leadership.
Getting actually a personal check from Mr. Ratan Tata, we got an opportunity to get listed.
One of the biggest things that has changed in Razorpay over the last 5-6 years is to be a single product, single business company to a multi-product, multi-business company.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
welcome. You're watching WION World is One. My name is Mohammed Saleh, and let's start this broadcast by taking a quick look as to what is making headlines at this hour. Now, the Israeli army says that the sirens have been sounded again in the north after yet another barrage of Iranian missiles. Sirens and interception has been reported in the country's north, and it needs to be seen as to what is the level of damage this wave of the missile barrage has inflicted on the state of Israel. The Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu vows to remove the nuclear and the ballistic missile threat that is posed by Iran on the seventh day of the war between the two arch enemies, in a war that, remember, was started by the Israeli Prime Minister through his Operation Rising Lion. And Iran has said that the death toll of its citizens who have been killed in these Israeli bombings has now risen to over 639, with at least 1,200 Iranians having sustained some serious injuries. Gaza's Civil Defense Agency says that the Israeli fire has killed at least about 72 Palestinians in just the last 24 hours. The Israeli troops claimed that the troops had fired warning shots at suspects, that is, the hungry Palestinians who were approaching one of the aid distribution centers where they were shot and killed by the Israelis. The 215 bodies of the victims of the ill-fated Air India flight have now been identified through DNA matching. 198 of the bodies have now been handed over to their families. The American President Donald Trump says that he has given social media platform TikTok yet another 90 days to find a non-Chinese buyer or be banned in the United States. Now, Trump posted on his Truth Social platform, putting off the ban for the third straight time. And Hurricane Eric makes its landfall in western Mexico state of Oaxaca as a dangerous Category 4 storm, bringing winds of up to 200 kilometers per hour and heavy rains.
Ayatollah Khamenei tweeted almost every day, "Death to Israel."
Whom should we surrender to? Iran is not a nation to surrender.
You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do.
The Israel-Iran war is now in its seventh day. Both sides have refused to ease the attacks. As missiles and drones roar over the sky, the diplomatic machinery is working to try and break a deadlock over Iran's nuclear program. Diplomats have now told Reuters that Iran has held direct talks again with the United States of America amidst the intensifying conflict. Now, the American Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi spoke over the phone several times in a bid to find some kind of a diplomatic solution to the crisis. Remember, the previous person, one of the key Iranian negotiators, Ali Shamkhani, who was talking to the Americans, was assassinated by the Israelis as part of this Operation Rising Lion. So the Iranians have questioned, is America even negotiating in good faith? Now, the diplomat Evacuee has said that Tehran will not return to the negotiations unless Israel stops the attacks, which began on the 13th of June. Now, air raid sirens blared across northern Israel as Iran launched fresh wave of attacks. Interceptions were seen over Haifa and Tel Aviv, and at least about 10 missiles were reportedly fired by Iran. And so far, there are no reports of any casualties or injuries in the Iranian ballistic missile strikes of today. Now, the Israeli military claims it has attacked several launch sites in western Iran after attempts to restore them were detected. The development comes after the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu visited the Soroka hospital that was struck by Iranian missile. Now, Israel claims that civilians were targeted in the Soroka hospital, while Iran says that there were military bases around the Soroka hospital which were the intended target. Now, the IDF's Home Front Command has said that Iran launched at least one ballistic missile that was carrying a cluster bomb warhead at central Israel early in the day. Iran reportedly launched about 20 ballistic missiles at Israel this morning, and the strikes have impacted several sites across the state of Israel, including the Soroka hospital. This is the structure that you see on your screens that has been devastated by an Iranian missile strike. Now, this hospital is located in Beer Sheba in the southern part of Israel. Now, the Israeli officials made a U-turn on the earlier statement of the Israeli attack on Iran's Bushehr nuclear site. An Israeli military official now claims that it was a mistake that was made by the military spokesperson to have earlier said that Israel had struck the Bushehr nuclear site in Iran. The Israeli official now confirmed that Israel had hit the Natanz, the Isfahan and the Arak nuclear sites in Iran. Now, the American President Donald Trump has raised some fresh speculation on whether the United States of America will get involved in this bruising war that broke out with the Israeli Operation Rising Lion. Everything hinges on the man with a yellow tie that you see in the center of your screens there. Now, Donald Trump has to make up his mind, but he has been very indecisive in the last 72 hours. The most recent thing that he has said is this: I may do it, I may not do it. Nobody knows what I'm going to do. Now, responding to the report that was published by the Wall Street Journal, the American president has said that they have no idea what my thoughts are concerning Iran. So as missiles fly, there are diplomatic channels that are showing some signs of reopening. The Chinese President Xi Jinping and the Russian President Vladimir Putin have jointly condemned the Israeli attacks on Iran by initiating this war. Russia has warned the United States against getting directly involved in the Iran war. The Kremlin has urged the state of Israel to immediately stop its air attacks on the Bushehr nuclear plant, where Russian experts are currently working. The foreign ministers from Britain, France and Germany, along with the EU's top diplomat, are set to meet with the Iranian officials in Geneva on Friday. But what will be the nature of these talks is anyone's guess, because remember, the key negotiator on behalf of Iran, Ali Shamkhani, was assassinated by the Israelis at the beginning of this round of hostilities. Now, Iran and Israel are engaged in an unprecedented hot war that is now in its 7th day. So as this war between Iran and Israel continues to intensify, listen in to what some of the experts have had to say about what is unfolding at this moment in West Asia.
I think it's very difficult to predict. We always know how wars begin. We never know how they're going to progress and how they're going to come to an end. We should hope that this war will end with a negotiated agreement that will set the terms to ensure that Iran will not be able to produce a nuclear bomb and not to threaten Israel with their ballistic missiles. But we need to ensure also that this war leads to a wider regional peace agreement or peace process, bringing in all the countries in the region to establish an architecture of regional security that will enable all the countries of the region to live in peace and enable the Palestinian people to finally have a state of their own living in peace next to Israel. This is the progression that we need to see happen from this horrible war that's taking place between Israel and Iran, and of course the war between Israel and Gaza, which continues.
There is no doubt in our mind that Israel can handle this situation militarily on its own, and which we do, not necessarily by ourselves. I mean, we have the Americans helping us and also other important friendly countries from the region and from abroad, and mostly on the defensive side of it. And the big issue is, of course, what can be the role of the Americans in this respect in the future. Of course, we don't know. It's a matter of a decision for the President of the United States. He will be the only one to decide what to do, how to do it, when to do it, etc. And we'll be waiting. But so far, I mean, it's now a week since the war started. And I think that everybody understands that we are doing quite well.
We are now in the 6th days of the Israelis' war on Iran against all humanitarian and international law. And it was something expected by a country that run by an internationally wanted criminal. So they have started to strike several sites in Iran. Since last few days, they have targeted at least 3 hospitals and the main headquarters of our Iranian Red Cross, and they have killed several civilians and children and women, like they have done in last 2 years in everywhere, including Gaza and Lebanon. So that's the very fabric of that regime that is based on killing children and women. The situation in Tehran is getting gradually adapted to the wartime situation. You know that Iranian has never been living in the wartime situation since at least 37 years ago, that the then Iraq dictator Saddam Hussein imposed the war on Iran. Since then, Iran has been living in the peace.
A new intrigue is unfolding in the skies over West Asia. As the Israel-Iran conflict continues to blaze, a series of mysterious Iranian government jets have landed in Oman, setting off a chain of speculation, suspicion and also silent alarm across the region. Take a look at this report.
Iran and Israel are exchanging heavy fire. Iran is launching multiple waves of missiles, while Israel is sending multiple fighter jets targeting Iranian nerve centers. What's the end game? That's the question on everyone's mind. A mysterious air dash may offer some clues. Iran's primary presidential plane, along with 2 other government airliners, has reportedly touched down in Omani capital Muscat. As the jets brushed past Iran's closed airspace, they carved a direct path to a region known for quiet back-channel meetings. Yet Muscat remains silent. No written confirmation, no official briefings, just the visible arrival of aircraft belonging to Iran's military-owned airline. The lack of transparency only deepens the mystery. Just hours later, another flight listed under Saha Airlines landed in Karachi, Pakistan, according to flight logs. Again, the undeclared flight remains under the veil of secrecy. A high-level Iranian delegation could be in Muscat for potential ceasefire talks. Oman is an ally of Iran and has recently been facilitating talks between Tehran and Washington, particularly over Iran's nuclear program. But in the absence of any official word, speculation is rife. Could Iran be orchestrating secret talks with Gulf states? or staging a logistical node in South Asia. With US naval assets converging in the region, Iran may be expanding its supply or negotiation chains. The Pakistan stop sharpens interest. Is it merely technical, or is Islamabad becoming a waypoint for Iran's broader strategic play? Bureau Report, WION World is One.
So, in a major escalation, the Iranian missiles have now struck Israel's Soroka Medical Center, a hospital in Beersheba in the Negev desert. Now, there are an estimated 70 people in the hospital who have now sustained injuries, and Israel's health ministry claims that 240 people initially were injured nationwide, 4 of them seriously. The attack, in fact, came as Israel carried out strikes on Iran's Arach heavy water reactor, part of what it calls its ongoing campaign against Iran's nuclear program. And just days earlier, Soroka staff had said that it had moved about 60 patients to the basement, a move that likely saved lives. The missile damaged upper floors and disrupted critical services, including blood work. The hospital is now working to evacuate patients as fears of another strike continue to grow.
On Monday, it was like a preventive measure to move all the patients from the internal medicine building, divided to ventilated patients, mobile patients, non-mobile patients. We decided to move all the helpless people that we consider helpless to the underground unit of the hospital, which was never, as far as we know, used for that. Even though it's not, it wasn't like fully staffed or anything. It was a huge operation of the entire hospital.
Now, since the war began last Friday, a Washington-based Iranian rights group has reported that at least about 639 people in Iran have been killed in these Israeli bombings, including 263 civilians. In the state of Israel, about 24 have died, while hundreds of others are said to be wounded. The fight now continues, but for now, though, hospitals like Soroka are focused on survival.
Yeah, okay, so it appears Haifa in the north right now under Iranian missile attack as we go to air. Those sirens are sounding in the port city as well as several other towns up there as well. It looks like a fairly large-scale attack based on the alerts that I'm seeing on the phone. So right now people will be going to their bomb shelters. That will be the first time we've seen an attack like this since that one this morning that you mentioned. Around 30 missiles fired just after 7 a.m. local time, targeting Tel Aviv. We saw certainly a number of impacts here with apartment buildings and homes hit, but also that hospital, as you mentioned. Now, that is the biggest hospital in the southern part of Israel, a major health facility. The Prime Minister was down there vowing that Iran will pay for this. Now, we are being told that there were no casualties. Remarkably, they are saying it was just yesterday they decided to evacuate the surgical wing of that hospital because of the war, and that is the part of the building that sustained the most damage. They are saying that decision yesterday has likely saved many lives.
Long-range missile warfare between Iran and Israel has now entered into its 7th day, and it is the 8th night since the Israelis started this war with their Operation Rising Lion. So as both nations continue to strike at each other, buildings that once were inhabited by people have been turned into a pile of rubble. And it is the common people who are facing the very harsh consequences of the war. Take a look at this report.
This is a blow to our country. We have a common future. We need to understand that we have a common destiny. So let's end all the wars. Let's end the war in Gaza, in Syria, in Lebanon, and in Iran, and live in peace.
It was like an airplane going above us with a big echo and a big whistle, and then we heard a boom. The boom was like from 1 to 100, it was 100. It was like a tsunami above us. The door of the shelter opened. The dog ran away from the fear.
My home is here and my office is this building. It was a terrible night because in the morning we heard the bomb and I see from the window all the situation. It's very, very dark, very, very hard situation. All the windows is broken. Many people is here. We're not allowed to go into the offices, and we hope that everything will be okay.
7:45 in the morning, my daughter and I are in the safety room. Maybe 2-3 minutes after that, we heard the bomb. The building shook.
So as Iran and Israel continue with their deadly exchanges, a Boeing E-4B nicknamed Doomsday plane touched down at the Joint Base Andrews last night. This singular event amidst rising threat signals that the United States could be preparing for some unimaginable contingencies. A behemoth airborne command center now stands ready for the Commander-in-Chief, Donald Trump himself. Now, this is, of course, no ordinary aircraft. It is the airborne nerve center for nuclear war. The fortress of last resort, and its sudden appearance signals that something big could happen. The last time this plane was thrust into the public eye was on the 11th of September 2001, a day of national trauma and global consequences for the United States. Inside the Night Watch is a fortress that is built for Armageddon, with space for 112 people, which includes the top civilian and military leadership of America. It has briefing rooms and even sleeping quarters. Its 67 antennas and satellite links ensure that even as the war rages below, the President and America's top generals can command the world's deadliest arsenal. Its hull is hardened to withstand nuclear blasts and electromagnetic pulses, and it is designed to keep the chain of command unbroken through chaos and catastrophe. So what could happen next? Now, this could just be a pure deterrence, a posturing move to reassure its allies and to dissuade Iran. If a US asset is struck in the Gulf, the Doomsday plane links up Storm Command and Control, enabling the bombers, the carriers, the cyber shields, and also the strategic forces to retaliate. Launch orders issued from the Doomsday plane could cascade across multiple theaters, Europe, Asia, and indeed the nuclear command. No official word has emerged from the White House. Is Trump ready to command from the sky if the unthinkable happens? Or is this just a posturing by the United States, a sort of a warning to the adversaries that America's hand is hovering over the world's most powerful nuclear trigger? For now, though, the Doomsday plane is sitting on tarmac. The engines are at rest. Its purpose is shrouded in mystery and silence, but its message and appearance is unmistakable. The world is closer to the brink of a catastrophe than it has ever perhaps been before. American politics is heating up over Trump's involvement in the ongoing conflict between Israel and Iran. The podcast host and commentator Tucker Carlson was caught in an on-air argument with the Texas senator, who's one of the loudest voices urging the American nation to join this war with Israel, Ted Cruz. And he asked him some very basic questions about what he knows about Iran, about how many people live there, and what is the demographic composition of Iran. Now, this moment signifies the growing rift amongst the Republicans as Trump is doubling down on his threats to Iran. Now, take a look at this fascinating exchange.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the one who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump?
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. If you really believe that...
We're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I've said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting
This is
Israel.
high stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay.
All right, so that is the Republican Senator Ted Cruz, who's calling for America to go to war on Iran, but has very little knowledge about Iran, its population, and its ethnic composition. The SpaceX's Starship 36 prototype blew up during testing in Texas late on Tuesday night. Eyewitness video captured the moment as the spacecraft prepared for its 10th flight. The incident followed just after a rift between Musk and the White House was out in the open. Take a look at these images.
How does weather play into it? Like quickly static fire will rain.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
We're giving an AI-generated video where we can analyze your credit history, your credit score.
It's all about now content. A lot of it is now digital. A lot of TV content is still being watched.
I think it's been a fantastic journey. We have succeeded in some of our original goals, which was to bring credit accessibility to both companies and individuals.
Key milestones of traction under your leadership. Getting actually a personal check from Mr. Ratan Tata. We got an opportunity to get listed.
One of the biggest things that has changed in Razorpay over the last 5-6 years is to be a single product, single business company to a multi-product, multi-business company.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Welcome back. You're watching WION World is One with me, Raisha Saigal. We're cutting across live to the White House press briefing, which is being held by Caroline Levitt. Take a listen.
Drain the American taxpayer and artificially lower wages and steal American jobs. ICE officers are courageous heroes, upholding the rule of law and keeping our citizens safe. And they have the full and unwavering support of this president. In economic news, President Trump's pro-growth agenda is delivering for the American worker. Through the first 5 months of the Trump administration, real blue-collar wages are up nearly 2%. It's the strongest growth in nearly 60 years and a stark contrast from the negative wage growth seen during the first 5 months of the Biden administration. America is quickly returning to the successful formula of the first Trump administration: low inflation and rising wages. Once the big, beautiful bill is passed, this positive trend will only accelerate. Senate Republicans are continuing to push this critical legislation forward. The One Big Beautiful Bill will drive growth and supercharge the American economy. The Council of Economic Advisors found that the One Big Beautiful Bill will raise take-home pay by nearly $14,000 for a year for the average family of 4. The CEA also found that the One Big Beautiful Bill will increase wages as much as $11,000 for the average worker in America. The One Big Beautiful Bill expands the child tax credit and makes it permanent for more than 40 million families with children. And the bill will deliver no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and substantial tax cuts for our incredible seniors. Simply put, the One Big Beautiful Bill is a massive win for middle-class Americans. When nearly 80 million Americans sent President Trump back to this White House, they were doing so expecting these popular policies to be enacted. Republicans in Congress have a mandate to deliver, and President Trump demands they send this historic bill to his desk for signature by Independence Day, July 4th. The American people are fully behind President Trump. According to brand new polling from Insider Advantage, a clear 54% majority of Americans approve of the job President Trump is doing. That's because this president is keeping his promises and taking action every day to improve their lives. And passing this bill will help fulfill a number of President Trump's core campaign promises. Now, regarding the ongoing situation in Iran, I know there has been a lot of speculation amongst all of you in the media regarding the president's decision-making and whether or not the United States will be directly involved. In light of that news, I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks." That's a quote directly from the president for all of you today. So we'll kick it off for questions here in our new media seat. We have Eli Lake from the Free Press. Eli, go ahead.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
The Free Press. The decision to extend the, delay in enforcing the TikTok ban.
Sure.
Can you talk about how the White House understands its constitutional authority in light of the Supreme Court's decision in January that said that the president had to enforce the ban?
Sure. Well, as all of you know, because the president put it out on his Truth Social today, he did sign an executive order to extend the TikTok ban for 90 days. So in the effort to make a deal. And the White House counsel and the Department of Justice have reviewed this executive order, and I can get it for you. I think it's on our website by now. If it's not, my team will now put it up immediately. And you can read the language in that executive order. And the White House counsel's office and the Department of Justice strongly believe in the legal rationale for this executive order. They wouldn't have the president's pen hit it if they didn't. And the political reasoning for this, of course, is because the president made a promise to keep TikTok on. There are 100 million Americans who use this app. It's wildly popular. He also wants to protect Americans' data and privacy concerns on this app, and he believes we can do both things at the same time. So he's making an extension so we can get this deal done.
Can I get a follow-up?
Sure.
A few weeks ago, Tucker Carlson reported on a meeting between the president, Mark Levin, and others at the White House. Is there a leak investigation, and can you say who else was in that meeting?
I'm not aware of a leak investigation at this time. I, for one, do not reveal details about the president's private meetings without his permission to do so. But certainly the president does not like when people leak. He takes that very seriously. This entire administration takes that seriously, and that's why you've seen at agencies some of the cabinet secretaries have been given the authority by the president to let go of staff who are engaged in such leaks, especially those that risk American national security. Sure. Go ahead.
Caroline, thank you. So
Rhino warmonger Lindsey Graham, he recently called on the U.S. to go all in.
That's quite the lead to a question.
Right. What's your message to everyday Trump supporters? Not the Tucker Carlsons or other big names, but everyday Trump supporters, grassroots who voted for President Trump to stop the wars, rejected this in the primary, going into another war with voting against Nikki Haley, and they want to see non-U.S. involvement in this war. What's your message?
Trust in President Trump. President Trump has incredible instincts, and President Trump kept America and the world safe in his first term as president in implementing a peace through strength foreign policy agenda. And with respect to Iran, nobody should be surprised by the president's position that Iran absolutely cannot obtain a nuclear weapon. He's been unequivocally clear about this for decades, not just as president, not just as a presidential candidate, but also as a private citizen. In fact, I have some quotes for you. In 2011, President Trump said, America's primary goal with Iran must be to destroy its nuclear ambitions. We cannot allow this radical regime to acquire a nuclear weapon that they will either use or hand off to terrorists. In 2015, the president said the problem is that Iran poses an existential threat to Israel, our Middle Eastern allies, and the United States. And of course, the president has repeated that in his first term as president and his second term as president as well. That's why he was adamantly opposed to the disastrous Iranian nuclear agreement that was implemented by President Obama. And it's why he has given great latitude and given a lot of effort to achieving a diplomatic solution. But he's been very clear. Iran went for 60 days when he gave them that 60-day warning without coming to the table. On day 61, Israel took action against Iran. And as I just told you from the president directly, he will make a decision within 2 weeks.
A follow-up?
Sure. Go ahead, Natalie.
Thanks, Caroline. Can you confirm whether Steve Witkoff has been in touch with the Iranian foreign minister? And does Witkoff plan to go to Geneva tomorrow for talks?
I am not tracking that on Mr. Witkoff's travel schedule, but I can certainly check in with him to be sure. As for correspondence between the United States and the Iranians, I can confirm that correspondence has continued. As you know, we were engaged with 6 rounds of negotiations with them in both indirect and direct ways.
Thanks, Kelly. Just to clarify the president's statement just now, when he says that he'll make a decision in the next 2 weeks, is he saying that if Iran does not come back to the negotiating table within the next 2 weeks, that the president will strike?
The president is saying that he will make a decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks. It's very clear and direct.
And is he seeing any signs of progress? He obviously is holding out hope for negotiations, but is he seeing any inklings of progress that give him that hope that talks are still possible?
Well, that's why he said in the statement that I just read for all of you, based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, he will make that decision within the next 2 weeks.
What makes him think there's still a substantial chance, is my question.
I'm not going to get into the reasoning and the rationale. The president believes that, but that's his position, and he will make a decision within the next 2 weeks.
Caroline.
Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. President Trump has said previously in regard to Russia, he's used this phrase about 2 weeks several times in terms of we expect like a 2-week deadline and then you give another 2-week deadline. How can we be sure that he's going to stick to this one on making a decision on Iran?
Well, in those deadlines, as you've seen in respect to Russia-Ukraine, might I add, these are 2 very different, complicated global conflicts, as you know, that the president inherited from our previous incompetent president in the weakness of the previous administration. And the president has spent a tremendous amount of time and effort cleaning up these crises that were caused by the last administration's just complete dereliction of duty on the world stage and American weakness. Now we have American strength again. With respect to Russia and Ukraine, because of that American strength, and the president's leadership, we have seen these 2 sides engage in direct negotiations. And the last time the president said 2 weeks, you saw Russia and Ukraine have direct negotiations for the first time in years. And so the president is always interested in a diplomatic solution to the problems and the global conflicts in this world. Again, he is a peacemaker in chief. He is the peace through strength president. And so if there's a chance for diplomacy, the president's always going to grab it. But he's not afraid to use strength as well, I will add. Francesca.
Thanks, Caroline. What exactly would a deal with Iran need to entail?
No enrichment of a uranium, and it would absolutely not. Iran is not absolutely not able to achieve a nuclear weapon. The president has been very clear about that. And by the way, the deal that Special Envoy Witkoff proposed to the Iranians was both realistic and acceptable within its terms, and that's why the president is sent that deal to them.
To follow up on what you told Natalie, Are the talks that the United States is currently having with Iran direct, or are those through intermediaries? And if so, which countries are acting as the intermediary right now?
Out of respect for the ongoing discussions and negotiations, I am not going to get into the details of them. We've provided you confirmation for now. Go ahead. Sure, and then behind you too.
Thanks. Sorry. On the topic of negotiations and talks, does the President have any hopes or specific expectations for the talks tomorrow between European foreign secretaries and their Iranian counterpart?
Well, certainly the entire world is on the president's side when it comes to the fact that Iran cannot obtain a nuclear weapon. This is something that pretty much all of humanity, except for the Iranian terrorist regime themselves, agree upon. And so the president expects that Europe will deliver that message directly to the Iranians.
Why does President Trump believe that this 90-day extension on TikTok will provide more runway perhaps than the previous extensions that haven't led to a divestment deal?
Because it's more time to make a good deal. Simple question. Dasha?
Thank you so much. I know things are going day by day right now. The president wants maximum optionality. Is the possibility of the U.S. getting involved in regime change in Iran at all on the table at this point? And then I have one on
Sure. The president's top priority right now is ensuring that Iran cannot obtain a nuclear weapon and providing peace and stability in the Middle East.
And on Medicaid, Caroline,
Sure.
the Senate put forward Medicaid provisions, particularly a lower cap on state provider taxes that hospitals have said would lead to mass closures, particularly in rural communities. Is the president willing to sign a bill that includes those provisions that Republican senators like Josh Hawley say will lead to hospital closures?
Out of respect for the ongoing discussions that the White House is very much actively involved in with our friends in the United States Senate, I won't comment on that specific provision. Look, the bill hasn't been sent to the president's desk yet. There's more room for change. The president, for one, I will reiterate, has been very clear on his priorities with respect to Medicaid. He wants to see waste, fraud, and abuse ridden from the system to protect it for tax-paying citizens who deserve those much-needed benefits. He wants to prioritize the sick, the needy, the poor in this country who deserve those benefits, not the 1.4 million illegal aliens who are receiving them. And he wants to make sure this one big beautiful bill kicks those illegal aliens off of this program to preserve it and protect it and strengthen it for the American people. And the president has been very clear in that message to his friends in the Senate. Jackie.
Thank you, Caroline.
Sure.
Logistically, if the Iranians are getting to Geneva, does that mean they've found a way to get to the White House?
I am not going to get into hypotheticals, but as you heard from the president yesterday, they have expressed interest in doing so.
There's a lot of pressure on the president to come to the aid of Israel. There's a lot of pressure on him to finish the job with force. How is he...
And that was the White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, who said that Trump will decide in the next 2 weeks whether to take part in the strikes or any kind of negotiations with Iran. She also said that based on the fact that may or may not take place any kind of negotiations with Iran, and to dissect that further, we have with us a correspondent, Susan Tehrani. Hi, Susan. Get us up to speed with what Karoline Leavitt just said, that Trump will take a time frame of 2 weeks to decide what U.S. has to do with Iran. As of now, still no indication whether America will get involved in the strikes in Iran or not, or any kind of negotiations.
Right. But we did hear a little bit after her making those comments. Of course, she said the reason for that is because she's giving time for a proposal that was sent by Steve Witkoff, President Trump's chief negotiator, to the Iranians. They think, Americans think that proposal is very reasonable. So President Trump seems to want time to see whether or not the Iranians would come to the negotiating table. Now, she also said that, regarding those negotiations that are expected to happen between the Europeans and Iran tomorrow, that there are no expectations. She says that the Europeans know America's position very well, and if the topic of the United States does come up, which it will, the Europeans are there to relay this message. She did not mention whether or not the United States and Iran are in direct contact right now for any kind of negotiation or any intermediaries besides those European countries tomorrow. Now, it's also important to note that President Trump has been very secretive and very coy about his plans on whether or not he would get involved or not. If you recall, just yesterday, he was sort of mocking the fact that he would come in front of the cameras and give an exact date and time on whether or not America would get involved. So this 2-week period, I would take with a grain of salt. Anything might happen between now and 2 weeks, and we shouldn't look at this as a deadline, but more as what will happen in the next 2 weeks.
Right, Susan, thanks for getting us the latest. And well, for more on this, we're now being joined by Joachim Bitterlich, who is a former German ambassador to NATO and former European diplomatic and security advisor to German Chancellor Helmut Kohl. Welcome to WION, Ambassador Bitterlich. Just moments ago, we heard the White House press secretary saying that Trump will decide on Iran in the next 2 weeks, and further saying that may or may not take place any kind of negotiations with Iran. As of now, still no clear indication of what the US president wants to do with Iran at this point of time. What do you make of that statement, especially the time frame of 2 weeks?
Well, I think President Trump is trying to find a way out of a certain dilemma. He was being more and more on the one hand, under pressure by the Israelis to take part, for example, to take part in the specific bombing of one of the enrichment plants in Iran, or of other strategic sites under the earth, yes. On the other hand, I think he is seeing that this way could perhaps, let's say, destroy the last possibilities to get at the end of the day a, let's say, suitable solution of this conflict. And I think, therefore, he has been trying now to find out a certain way out of this dilemma. He knows exactly that tomorrow maybe 3 Europeans, France, Britain and Germany will meet, foreign ministers will meet their Iranian colleague in Geneva. I do not exclude that in the light of these discussions, the Americans will continue with the assistance of the Omanis to talk directly or indirectly to Iran, where the president could really evaluate at the end of the day, where are we, where could we go, is there a solution reachable? Because on the other hand, he knows exactly at the same time that Israelis are not able, let's say, to lead a war of attrition. Let's say 2 weeks is to some extent, 2-3 weeks is perhaps, I can't say it exactly, a certain maximum of the Israelis where they will need real assistance in a certain moment. I don't think there's a hidden agenda somewhere. What Trump is looking at the same time is, on the one side, a success story, that he has contributed actively and thoroughly to, let's say, the end of his conflict in a positive way. On the other hand, he's, I think, realistic, more realistic than the Israelis on regime change. And therefore, it's nearer what I call exit strategy I see now.
Right.
This is a complex situation, yes.
Right, Ambassador Bitterlich, you speak that Trump is perhaps navigating a dilemma and hence the time frame of 2 weeks to decide what US has to do on Iran. Do you think that perhaps Trump is using this window as a time frame to force Iran to yield to his own demands?
This is a certain time frame, and I think he's right to indicate 2 weeks for this. On the one side, he knows exactly how long the Israelis can maintain, let's say, pressure directly on the Republic of Iran. At the same time, he knows the Israelis can't go for a war of attrition. And at the same time, he has to, let's say, have an open time. And I think 2 weeks are excellent. 2 weeks in order to have a real negotiation with the Iranians.
Ambassador Bitterlich,
I think it's a good timing.
All right. The White House press secretary also said chance for diplomacy, but will also add strength. What do you make of that? Do you think that if negotiations fail in this time frame of 2 weeks, that the US will perhaps join Israel in striking Iran?
Well, the difficulty will the Iranians give in with regard to enrichment? I don't think that anyone can forbid to any country, let's say, to have an enrichment by 3% for fueling a nuclear power plant. Even exceptionally 20% for medical purposes. But will we get from the Iran or the US are more times more important than the Europeans insofar, will the US get the clear assurance, the clear, let's say, yes of the Iranians to refrain from any, let's say, enrichment further than 20% in exceptional cases? This is the key to some extent. They will not renounce, let's say, to any enrichment. They will, let's say, stick to the enrichment to the civilian one, 3% and 20%. But how to exclude in the best way, let's say, that the Iranians continue what they have been doing in the last, let's say, year, to enrich till 60% with possibility go till 90% for developing a nuclear bomb. And President Trump at the same time is aware that within the US administration, he has different evaluations on the time frame, let's say, till the bomb on the Iranian side. He knows this too. Therefore, I think what he's trying now is to get a real negotiation by the Iranian side, renouncing to enrichment for military purposes. Full stop. This is the key for the next 2 weeks. And if the Iranians ensure this, I don't think Trump will insist more on regime change, because he knows exactly the history on regime change of the Americans over the last 20 years. And therefore, please, this is... oh, did we lose?
No. I can hear you. Yes, Ambassador Bitterlich. That's what Iran has been saying since the start, that its nuclear program is only for civic facilities and power and not for nukes. And the IAEA had also earlier said that there's no evidence that Iran is pursuing any kind of nuclear weapons. But at this point of time, if negotiations happen, do you think Iran will heed?
Well, let's see. Let's see. And there's really a time if the Iranians are able to give a real credible answer to the US and to others. And I fear a bit that the Iranians will try to use the Europeans, because they know exactly the Europeans are more in favor of a diplomatic solution than the Americans or the Israelis. And they do not like the extension of this war. And they see the calendar at the same time. Next week, there's a NATO summit in The Hague, where the Americans and the Europeans will meet again. And it's a risky period for them. And the key will be, will the Iranians be able to give a real credible answer to the US? I think the US are the key in this. And if the Americans accept such a credible answer, then okay. Therefore, I think 2 weeks is the right pressure on the Iran, let's say, to give a clear and credible answer.
Right. Thank you so much, Ambassador Bitterlich, for joining us here on WION and sharing your insights.
Okay. As always, with pleasure.
Likewise. Iran's potential closure of the Strait of Hormuz is a threat that has re-emerged amid rising tensions with Israel. Iran's Parliamentary National Security Committee board member says Iran has many options to respond to aggression, including closing the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranian lawmaker says Iran would resort to closure of global oil lifeline if its interests are endangered. Iran has in the past threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz to traffic in retaliation for Western pressure. Commercial ships were avoiding Iran's waters around the strait as well. Let's first understand what the Strait of Hormuz is. Well, it is a narrow but strategically important waterway that connects the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman and ultimately to the Arabian Sea. It sits between Iran to the north and Oman and the United Arab Emirates to the south. The strait spans only about 21 nautical miles across, but despite its size, it plays a huge role in the global economy. Every day, a significant portion of the world's oil supply, estimated at around 20% of all seaborne crude, passes through this route. This waterway is governed by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea under the principle of transit passage, which further allows ships of all nations to pass through it. But what happens if Iran shuts it, if Iran shuts the Strait of Hormuz? Well, it would have an immediate impact on the global price of oil, which has the potential to cause major worldwide economic disruptions. This will also come at a time when oil prices have already increased after the ongoing tensions in West Asia. The closure of the waterway would affect Gulf Arab states, which have already been at odds with Iran and aligned with the United States of America. They would be pressured to act and support some kind of intervention because of the massive impact to the heavily oil and natural gas dependent economies. Not only other countries, but the closure of the Strait of Hormuz would even impact Iran's economy, the revenue, because the revenue from oil and natural gas shipments is key to the country, and the disruptions to seaborne commerce would have other impacts on the regime in Tehran as well. All right, we're now slipping into a very short break. Thanks very much for staying with us. You are watching WION World is One. Stay tuned.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
We're giving an AI-generated video where we can analyze your credit history, your credit score.
It's all about now content. A lot of it is now digital. A lot of TV content is still being watched.
I think it's been a fantastic journey. We have succeeded in some of our original goals, which was to bring credit accessibility to both companies and individuals.
Key milestones of traction under your leadership. Getting actually a personal check from Mr. Ratan Tata. We got an opportunity to get listed.
One of the biggest things that has changed in Razorpay over last 5-6 years which I've been is to be a single product, single business company to a multi-product, multi-business company.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Welcome back. You are watching WION World is One with me, Raisha Sehgal. Lots landed for you on the show. Let's get you started with the headlines. The White House says that US President Donald Trump will decide on American involvement in the war in the next 2 weeks. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt says that there are substantial chances of negotiations with Iran amid the war with Israel. Israel's defense ministry says planes carrying armaments and military equipment for the IDF landed in Israel today as a part of efforts to strengthen operational continuity. Reports say a majority of the planes have come from the US. Gaza Civil Defense Agency says Israeli fire killed at least 72 people today. The Israeli army claims troops had fired warning shots at suspects approaching them. "215 bodies of victims of the ill-fated Air India flight now identified through DNA testing. 198 have been handed over to their families. US President Donald Trump says he has given social media platform TikTok another 90 days to find a non-Chinese buyer or be banned in the United States. Trump posted on his Truth Social platform, putting off the ban for the third time. Hurricane Eric makes landfall in western Mexican state of Oaxaca as a dangerous Category 4 storm, bringing winds of up to 200 kilometers per hour and heavy rains. And breaking news coming at this point of time. Israeli Defense Ministry says several cargo planes carrying armaments and military equipment for the IDF landed in Israel today. The vast majority of the planes have come from the US. It is a part of efforts to strengthen operational continuity and support all the IDF's needs, both for achieving the goals of the war and for improving readiness and stockpiles. Since the start of Israel's operation against Iran, 14 cargo planes with equipment for the IDF have landed in Israel. And that's the news coming in that the Israeli Defense Ministry says several cargo planes carrying armaments and military equipment for the IDF landed in Israel today. The vast majority of the planes have come from the United States of America. This comes, of course, after US President Donald Trump yesterday clearly stated that we have superiority over the Iranian skies, clearly asserting that US is with Israel in the ongoing war. And now what we're also getting you the latest is that US is also assisting the Israeli defense personnel, with the IDF saying that several cargo planes carrying armaments and military equipment for the IDF has landed in Israel today. Earlier, 14 cargo planes with equipment were transferred to Israel through the United States of America. That's since the start of the Israel's Operation Rising Lion against Iran. We are on day 7 of the Israel-Iran conflict. Till now, 14 cargo planes with equipment for the IDF have landed in Israel.
Ayatollah Khamenei tweeted almost every day, "Death to Israel."
Whom should we surrender to? Iran is not a nation to surrender.
You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do.
The war that began on June 13th has now entered a dangerous phase. Not only is the air war between the two most powerful armies in West Asia escalating, the IRGC and the IDF are striking each other where it hurts the most. Earlier today, Iranian missile barrage struck Soroka Hospital in Israel. This was Iran's largest attack on Israel's civilian infrastructure, despite Tel Aviv's multi-layered missile defense system. Israel is now failing to intercept the missiles, and now Israel says Iran will pay the price for this attack.
Yet another day of horror. The missiles are raining day and night. Despite the multi-layered missile defense system, Israel is failing to intercept the incoming Iranian barrage. This is Beersheba Soroka Medical Center, which is full of smoke and dust. A direct hit that shook ICU wards and trapped patients amid crumbling corridors.
This is the Soroka Hospital in southern Israel. You could see behind me that building of the hospital was hit by a missile from Iran early Thursday morning. The top of the building is basically blown off, and you could still see smoke smoldering from the side of it hours later.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vows revenge, while Katz, the defense minister, says Iran's supreme leader can no longer be allowed to exist.
We are committed to destroying the nuclear threat, the threat of a nuclear annihilation against Israel.
Tehran claims the hospital was not deliberately targeted and claims it was aiming at two adjacent military sites. This is the same logic used by Israel when it targeted Iran's state broadcaster in Tehran on Monday. Iran released these images showing damage to the building. Dozens of Iranian ballistic missiles also struck two other Israeli cities. A missile struck the base of a skyscraper in Ramat Gan, close to central Tel Aviv and about 200 meters from the city's diamond exchange.
Huge. I never heard such a sound. I was in the army, my parents live in Ashkelon, I passed few bombs, I passed few wars.
But it was nothing like this.
This one was a tsunami form up, really.
One of the Iranian missiles that hit central Israel hit apartment buildings in Holon. The horrified residents narrate the ordeal.
We were inside the shelter and we heard an explosion like I've never heard in my life. And I have lived through a few wars since I was 4 years old, and that's it.
I was going down the stairs and closed the door of the shelter.
There was a huge explosion and our building was damaged. Long live the people of Israel and everything will be fine.
This is the 7th day of relentless warfare, and the tempo is only accelerating. Missile trails scar the sky by day and night as Iran and Israel trade blow for blow. What began with Israel strikes on Iranian military targets and leadership has now escalated into a full-blown war. With both Iran and Israel vowing to hit back even harder, things are only getting tense with each passing day. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Israeli cities are devastated as Iran continues to launch deadlier wave of missile strikes. Tehran burns under the thunder of Israeli airstrikes, and the world holds its breath as the US dispatches a third aircraft carrier to the region. The big question: when will America enter the war?
Israeli jets have hammered Iranian targets in Tehran, igniting panic and sending thousands fleeing the city. Iran has hit back with a relentless barrage of missiles and drones, striking deep into Israeli territory and vowing never to surrender. The US has built up military forces in the region in recent days. A third entered the eastern Mediterranean Sea, and a second US carrier strike group is heading towards the Arabian Sea. Carrier strike groups refueling aircraft and advanced air and naval assets have been deployed to prepare for any escalation. The Pentagon says these are all defensive deployments. The US already has over 40,000 troops spread across at least 19 bases in the region, from Qatar and Kuwait to Saudi Arabia and the UAE. In Washington, President Donald Trump stands at a crossroads that could redefine West Asia. He has issued a chilling demand for Iran's unconditional surrender, asked if he had decided whether to strike at Iran's nuclear facilities. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei warns that any US military intervention would bring irreparable consequences. The risks are monumental. A single miscalculation could ignite a regional conflagration, threaten global energy supplies, and draw the US into another protracted war.
So if America does commit, that the real risk here, which Iran has been threatening, is that it will potentially target American and other nations' military capability in the region, a lot of which within missile range of Iran.
As the world holds its breath, the fate of the region hangs on decisions yet to be made by Trump, by Khamenei, by Netanyahu, and by the unpredictable logic of war itself. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Iran's potential closure of the Strait of Hormuz is a threat that has re-emerged amid rising tensions with Israel. Iran's Parliamentary National Security Committee board member says that Iran has many options to respond to aggression, including closing the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranian lawmaker says Iran would resort to closure of global oil lifeline if its interests are endangered. Iran has in the past threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz to traffic in retaliation for Western pressure. Commercial ships were avoiding Iran's waters around the strait. Let's first understand what the Strait of Hormuz is. Well, it's a narrow but strategically important waterway that connects the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman and ultimately to the Arabian Sea. It sits between Iran to the north and Oman and the United Arab Emirates to the south. The strait spans only about 21 nautical miles across, But despite its size, it plays a huge role in the global economy. Every day, a significant portion of the world's oil supply, estimated at around 20% of all seaborne crude, passes through this route. The waterway is governed by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea under the principle of transit passage, allowing ships of all nations to pass through it. But what happens if Iran shuts it? Well, it would have an immediate impact on the global price of oil, which has the potential to cause major worldwide economic disruptions. This would come at a time when oil prices have already increased after the ongoing tensions in West Asia. The closure of the waterway would also affect Gulf Arab states, which have already been at odds with Iran and aligned with the United States. They would be pressured to act and support some kind of intervention because of the massive impacts of their heavily oil and natural gas dependent economies. Not only other countries, but the closure of the strait would rather even impact Iran's economy. The revenue from oil and natural gas shipments is key to the country, and the disruptions to seaborne commerce would also have impacts on Iran. As the Israel war escalates, reports from within Israel indicate a divide in defense preparedness for Arab and Jewish Israelis. Israel's Democratic Party chairman, Yair Golan, who is in opposition, has called the gap a major one, with Arab Israelis not having enough access to bomb shelters and other critical war preparedness infrastructure. Yair Golan reportedly took a tour of Arab municipalities of Shifa Amr Nazaret and Shibli in northern Israel, following which he criticized the unequal access. The Israeli leader said, and I quote here, "Iranian missiles do not distinguish between Jews and Arabs. There are huge gaps in defense for Arab society." The Democratic Party head has criticized Israeli institutions for not allocating enough state budget towards strengthening defense preparedness in Arab municipalities. According to another Israeli opposition party, Hadsha Talal Party chairman Ayman Odeh, there are no public shelters available in Israel's northern city of Tamra, which has a sizable Arab Israeli population. Or they said that only 40% residents of the area have access to private shelters. 4 Israelis were killed in Tamra on June 14th as a result of Iranian missile strike. Criticism is now growing in Israel for not building as many shelters in Arab cities. A 2024 report published by the Israel Democracy Institute has in its findings revealed that Israeli authorities have not met its responsibilities to provide enough protective structures in Arab cities. A 2018 state comptroller report said that only 11 out of 71 Arab local authorities examined had public shelters. The prevailing hostilities between Israel and Iran has brought this differentiation against Arab Israelis back into the spotlight. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Ministry of External Affairs helped evacuating Indian students from Iran. Out of the 110 Indian students that were evacuated, 94 Kashmiri students have returned to the valley. The students moved from one city to another and crossing the Iran border to Armenia. It took them a total of 4 days to be finally airlifted by an Indian aircraft. Upon their arrival in Kashmir, the students thanked the Indian embassy for arranging transport to airports and ensuring security amid the war. They also expressed immense gratitude towards the central government.
I am feeling very good, very calm. It was a very, very hectic journey for us, for all students, I'll say. But I am feeling very, subtle and very calm seeing my parents right now. It feels very surreal here, being back home.
The government of India played a major role in getting you back. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, it does. 110% efforts were given by the government of India for our evacuation. It did everything, whatever it was in their control to, evacuate us from, Iran. Yeah, very thankful to them. Very, very thankful.
Many students were sent to Kashmir through buses arranged by the Omar Abdullah-led government, while many took flights back to their hometowns. It has been a difficult past few days for the students who found themselves caught amidst the chaos, and now they're relieved and happy to be back.
Relieved and happy, but deep down, being not in our country where we study is not that much relieving for us also.
But I'm sure you met your parents.
Yeah. Our family was in so much distress due to us, obviously. Like, we were trying to calm them, we are safe and sound, but obviously parents have a lot of concern for their children. They are so happy to see them here.
The students who boarded buses from Delhi to Kashmir will reach the valley on June 20th. While many students are back home safely, there are still many students who are stuck in Iran and waiting to be evacuated by the ministry. Well, US President Donald Trump hosted Pakistan's Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir at the White House. The lunch meeting was the first time an American president hosted the head of Pakistan's army. Trump said he discussed the Iran-Israel conflict with Munir, as Pakistan knows about Tehran better than most. Islamabad has condemned Israel's airstrikes against Iran, saying that they violate international law and threaten regional stability.
Yeah. You can share from that meeting? Yeah. Well, they know Iran very well, better than most, and they're not happy about anything. It's not that they're bad with Israel. They know them both, actually, but they're probably maybe